Hello there and welcome back to my YouTube channel and to today's video all about how to pass your SBR exam if you'd failed it before. Now I'm kindly joined again by the SBR guru, which is the lovely Tom Clendon. He needs no introduction, but I'm going to give it to him anyway. Tom, introduce yourself to our viewers today. Who are you? What's your experience with SBR and how can you help them pass if they failed the exam before?
Okay, thank you, James. Yeah, my name is Tom Clendon, and I spent a lifetime, I've spent a career teaching students to pass the final level of their ACCA accountancy exam. So it's kind of what I do. It's in my DNA. I was many, many years ago when I had darker hair, an ACCA student, and I'm now an online lecturer and a podcaster, and I also work with our professional body ACCA in supporting them in some capacities.
Spot
so that's
on.
me.
Oh, I think fantastic. I mean, as if we needed the introduction, but what I've done for you, everyone, is I've put all of Tom's details, his Instagram, his LinkedIn, and his free podcast in the description of this video. So make sure you check it out, click the links, they're all free on there, and drop him a message anytime because he's the guy to go to if you need to know about SBR. And if you're watching this video, maybe you just want some tips, but most likely you have unfortunately failed the SBR exam before. So Tom, we're going to walk and talk through some good tips that are going to help students pass, whether that's in the next sitting or if they're planning to do it in the future. So what would you say would be the best tip, first of all, to get the ball rolling?
I think a bit of reflection, James, and I think there are two whys that individuals have to think about. First of all, why are they doing ACCA? What is their motivation? Because when you failed an exam, you're on the back foot. Oh, I should give up. It's tough. You know, I can't do this. So really understanding the reason why you're doing it. Is it for your career progression? Is it for your personal pride? Is it for money? There are complex reasons why students do exams, aren't there?
Yeah, oh, I agree. I mean, maybe they want to do it again just to see you and hear your voice for another sitting, but I don't think that might be it. But yeah, I mean,
No.
it's always career progression, and for me it always was, and it was developing my knowledge and my skills. So
fulfilling potential, knowing that knowing you can do it and being frustrated. And there's nothing wrong with failing. There's nothing wrong with failing if you can use it as a learning opportunity. Fail can be thought of as an acronym, as a first attempt in learning. You know, it's not about falling down. It's not how many times you fall down. It's how many times you get up again.
Yeah, completely.
So one of the whys is, why are you doing this? Get that in your head, and that'll help you motivate. I think the other why is, why did you fail? You know, you've really got to be very honest with yourself about the time that you spent, what happened in the exam, why you weren't as fully prepared, because you can't, for the first few days and for the first few weeks, perhaps you can rail against the ACCA and you can feel a sense of injustice, you know, and you can work through, but you've got to work through that. And then, because only when you have thought perhaps why you failed, are you then going to be in a position to plan to do something different?
Yeah, completely agree. And I failed 2 exams of ACCA, and it was always.
And what did you do differently? What did you do differently after? How did you then approach life? You James?
Well, it was, first of all, I didn't see it as failure. I thought of it as lessons that I can learn going forward. That was the first thing straight away. So taking away that sort of negative stigma was the first key thing. The second thing was I had all my notes that I had from the previous time, and I just took some reflection time to actually go through it and say, right, looking at this, what do I actually think went well in it? What helped me in that examination? Let's go through it again in my thoughts. And then where am I going to have to improve going forward? And consolidating those notes into a nice little pack again to say, right, these are to my advantage. I've reorganized them. Now they're going to help me going forward on top of it. And then that comes down to what you just said there about, right, how are we going to take this forward and now improve? And some of the classic areas were not enough past papers, poor time management on there, not covering enough of the syllabus. But I don't want to steal your thunder on some of these different areas, Tom.
No, James. I mean, what you've said there from your personal experience was you were making your own notes. So you were chunking down and you were rewriting out the definitions and you were picking up on the keywords. And I don't know, I occasionally do mind maps and diagrams. Different people work in different ways, their brains, but making it your own, I think helps. One thing that I think some students struggle with the syllabus, because it's a wide syllabus, is they learn rather than they understand, and they memorize rather than apply. You're never going to pass a driving test by reading about how to drive, or even, dare I say this, watching a YouTube about how to drive, you know. And let me give you a silly example. Rooted in SBR, I see it all the time. It's one of my homework questions. When we talk about impairment, now you may remember, James, that under ISA 36 impairment, there are external indicators and there are internal indicators which trigger the need to do an impairment review of an asset. And there's a question around goodwill, where we're asking students to describe and explain the impairment process relating to goodwill. And too many of them spend time listing the external indicators and the internal indicators in technically a perfectly correct way, but 0 marks.
Yeah, not applied to the scenario.
Because you have to do an annual impairment of goodwill. So it doesn't matter of anything about these indicators at all. It's just not relevant. And you know, you've got to write about cash generating units and NCI, and now I'm getting very sort of, you know, techie. So sometimes it's easier to understand and kind of let the force be with you, and to do that rather than have all this kind of rather than have too many muscles.
Yeah, I agree. And just coming on to that, to help anyone out there, one of the things that I found that I really struggled on when trying to apply to a scenario was I got into the habit of writing down the company's name, the individual's name, what was given in the scenario, so that you get into the habit of actually saying, oh, well, Leicester Limited did this with their impairment of goodwill. And before you know it, your mind is now changing to say, right, what is in that scenario that links into that requirement, and how can I link it together, versus just sort of stating exactly what you know as your core knowledge on there.
I think you and I are going to spend all our time agreeing with each other, aren't we? Because that shows application.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes a definition will get you a mark, but ironically, it's much better if you soften that definition.
Yeah.
You know, Leicester will write the asset down if its carrying value is below the recoverable amount, rather than because that's what a client wants to hear, isn't it? They want to hear about themselves.
Yeah, I agree. And there'll be lots of students out there that have got CAT plan, BPP books and all this sort of stuff. Well, that's brilliant. That's really good stuff. But that isn't in James's language, or isn't in Tom's language. So you go through their material and then just write your own little notes on the side to say, well, how do I interpret it? So I know what it's all about here. I've read it through, I've done the work, but then how am I going to articulate that to the marker in a language that I understand, and how a marker and our client would understand?
So if we're talking about somebody who's done SBR once and are now trying to do it again, one of the things I think they have to reflect on is how much they used the ACCA practice platform, how much they took advantage of the fantastic resources that are freely available on the ACCA practice platform. Did they do mock exams to time? Did they have a study buddy? Do you have a study buddy? Do you know anyone else who's doing SBR? Can you get in contact with them? Can you, you know, because you are you prepared to sign up for with an approved learning provider? Because when you look at the stats, as I understand the stats, and I'm not giving away any kind of trade secrets, there's a clearly far higher pass rate. There are some students who do SBR who haven't even accessed the practice platform.
Which You're at a
And
massive disadvantage.
their pass rate will be at a massive disadvantage. You've also got students who are signed up with some form of learning provider, and those who don't have any contact with the learning provider. And again, there's a discrepancy there in terms of the pass rates.
Yeah.
So it's about investing. I think it's a little bit about investing in yourself. And there's two things you invest perhaps as a student: money, but also
time. Yes.
Hey.
Indeed. The other thing that comes to mind, which still staggers me, and again, if you're resitting SBR, the ethics and professional skills module, that there are stats on ACCA's website that students who have done the ethics and professional skills module are more likely to pass the SBR exam. So if I'm there and I've got to do the SBR exam, and they're going, that is a non-negotiable, that is a no-brainer, I have to do that beforehand. And I've done a video on the channel just sort of explaining it through. I get loads of questions on it because I find that lots of students, I don't know if you'll find this from students who come to you, they just leave it to the end and then they go, I'll do it then, sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's a shame. It's a shame because the optimum time to do it is as you're transitioning from skills into strategic professional. It's a 15-hour thing. I know you have to pay for it, but it's one of the 3 E's that you need to qualify as a proper member. So you need to have the exams, which obviously what James and I are all about. You need to have the ethics and professional skills module, and you need to have the experience, which you can gain before, after, during your actual studies. So the ethics and professional skills module is going to help you. It's going to get you into online learning. It's going to make you reflect. It's going to give you benefits at work. Yeah, I mean, it's designed to both help you with your studies and be a professional, make you think about things.
Oh, definitely. And we also touched on the practice platform there. Past papers, honestly, just, I have to get this on record. The more you do for SBR, the better off you're going to be. And it just staggers me that I get messages from students around the world that say, James, I've done 1 and I'm going to try and do a 2nd before my exam. Is that going to be enough? I'm just there going, just do as many as you possibly can. Would you agree with that, Tom? That is my approach usually on these sort of things.
Oh, no, James. No. It's really important that students do no practice at all.
It staggers me, but yeah. And
but look, the fact that students are tuning in and listening to this, you know, we're talking to the good ones, aren't they? You know, these are people who are wanting, and so yeah, it's about helping yourself, and it's not about peeking at the answer. It's not about auditing the answer, all right? Because you know the answer's okay. It's about you having a go yourself, and don't judge yourself against the examiner's answer. Don't review it and say, the examiner wrote this amount, I wrote that amount, therefore I'm a failure. Sometimes at strategic professional, there is no right answer. The answer isn't always 42. You know, it's not a number. You're giving a judgment and you're giving a view. And that's why the exams are expert marked. That's why the exams are expert marked, because the examiner's answer is not the sort of answer that an average student will produce in order to pass. So don't beat yourself up too much.
It's a template answer where they're giving you little nuggets of information, and as long as you're going in those right lines, applying your own figures, showing your own workings, and think if you're marking your own work. This is another thing I learned from when I failed first time, and I looked at some of my old answers that I did to time, and the long nights at the library when you're tired after work and you've got to do a past paper. And I looked at it and went, I mean, that is pretty poor, James. They're not in nice paragraphs to say, first paragraph here, give you some marks, second paragraph here, give you some marks. And the sentences just weren't constructed nicely for the reader. But this was the reflection that I'd highly recommend people who are watching this now to go away, have a look at some of your old stuff, and then develop new techniques moving forward.
James, I love what you said there. You and I are old enough. I mean, obviously I'm a bit older than you, but you would have done your exams with pen and paper.
Yes, old school.
And the kids now have perhaps a slight advantage, or a difference anyway, in that they're doing it on computer. So they can structure their paragraphs. They can kind of do a little bit of a kind of quick dump down and then realize that if they want to get those professional skills marks, the definition perhaps should start at the beginning, so they can copy cut. If you know, the end should be a conclusion and the middle should be discussing what's in the case. So when they've written their answer, just stop for 10 seconds before you move on and make sure that you've not written one long, massive block of a paragraph. Break it up into 3 or 4. Because as a marker, I get bored and I get a headache. And to see a block of writing, maybe I don't want to be trivial here. I don't want to be trivial. Make friends with the marker. And we used to say, be neat with your handwriting. Now I think we have to say, don't worry about the spelling. Do not worry about the spelling. No one is going to penalize you because you can't spell a particular word. Anyone who's seen me doing live debriefs of the exams will know that, you know, my keyboard skills and my spelling are not brilliant, but as long as I'm making sense, that's fine. And one way to clear it is to have that little white space on the screen.
Wow. The other thing just to touch on as well from that, there are also the days when you finish work, it's a long day. You've got to find something that's just going to trigger you to get going. And what I used to do was I wrote down on a piece of paper and put it on my wall. I mean, I've got a nice wall here that would fit on nicely, but write down the mark that you got on the failed exam. So whether that's 49 or whether that's 12, okay? Because you're coming from work, tired, lethargic, and you know you've got to do a past paper to time, or you know you've got to go read something or do an online lecture, and you'll look at that and then you'll have a little surge of energy and it will get you through. And I'd highly recommend that for anyone who has failed SBR before and you just need that little nudge to get going again, because it can make all the difference.
I think I've got one last little thing I would like to add.
Yeah.
And that is about family and friends. And that is about getting their buy-in. Because if you're going to be resitting an exam, you as James is saying there, you need the focus, and you need the reminding, and you need the morale. And if you are going to duck out from some domestic duties, if you are going to be a little bit antisocial with your mates, then let them know that this is what's happening, and there's a reason, and you want to progress in your career, and it's only going to be for the next few weeks or the next few months or whatever, or whatever it is. So they don't phone you up and say, come on, let's go out for a bite. Have you seen the new James Bond film? You know, and they give you that support and they'll understand.
Oh, I completely agree. There are sacrifices to be made on it. Trust me on that. And that's where the sort of work-life study balance comes into it. You also got to look after yourself. Exercising, fresh air was another sort of thing. Eating properly, just all these things just building together to help you to pass, to get you that 50 plus. The final things that come to my mind are the technical articles on ACCA's website. If you failed before and you didn't have that core understanding, go and check them out. Tom's done some fantastic podcasts on them, just explaining them. You go for a little walk on your break, listen away to it. Super helpful. And also appreciating, because I speak to students around the world on this, that there is a step up from whether you've just done financial management or the audit and assurance paper, and then you're moving on to SBR. The step up is a big one. Maybe you've come out of university, you've got some exemptions as well. There is a step up on this. So actually accepting that and saying, I've got to up my game on this because the expectation is so much higher. Is it a 50% pass rate, give or take?
Yeah, that's it. That's the way it normally averages. And I'll tell you what, James, I think you'll agree, because we've obviously both done it. You want it to be hard, because this is a qualification worth getting. And you know, we're both ACCA advocates. We're both very proud of our qualification. We both are sort of putting back because we know it's hard, but we know it's worth it at the top. We know it's, you know, we know the view is nice.
Oh, it's a marathon, not a sprint, I always say.
Yeah,
and
it's
just the little things you do every day, and it will just compound and build up. And then when you get to that night before the examination, you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I have tried my utmost. I've done as many past papers. I've gone through the core text. I've done practice questions. I've listened to podcasts. I've read technical articles. I've used all the ACCA's free resources and online materials. I'm as well prepared as I could possibly be. I'm just going to give it my all now. That's the way I used to always look at it. And I hope that helps someone out there who's maybe failed SBR before. And it could just be that little boost to go again. I know it can be really difficult, but you can do it.
You can do it. Believe you can do it. Yeah, if you believe you can, it's probably true. If you believe you can't, it's also probably true. So yeah, belief is true. Belief is key.
Wow, final words of wisdom there, Tom. Is there any final other points you just want to make here? I mean, any lasting words that could make that little difference to get those final little marks for a student?
Don't rely on luck. Build your own confidence.
The silence to let that sink in. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's little chat about SBR, how to pass it if you have failed before. As I said, guys, I've put Tom's details along with his LinkedIn, the free podcast in the description. Make sure you check it out. It's definitely going to help you. Thank you so much, Tom, for today's talk.
Thank you, James. You're doing a great job.
Really enjoyed it as ever, and thank you so much as ever for the support to the channel. If you have enjoyed the video, give it a massive like and thumbs up, and be sure to share this video with any friends that you know who have got SBR coming up, because you know the little tips and tricks we've talked about today are definitely going to help you out. Well, thank you very much for listening, and as always on that bombshell, we'll see you next time. Cheers.